Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to Hobby Sauce. Today, I'm going to give you 10 things that will make your Kings of War game better. Let's get saucy.
Hobby Sauce.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to Hobby Sauce. Remember that Hobby Sauce is a channel that's devoted to wargaming, Kings of War, and anything hobby can do, but I can't do it without you, so please be sure to like and subscribe the video below and hit that bell so you don't miss any content. Let's get into the video. Hey everybody, Masters is this weekend, February 23rd and 24th. We're going to have some live streaming of the event. Patrick Zora-Allen's going to be doing it along with the announcers Michael Piercy and Matt Carmack. And if you don't remember, I put a video, one of these two places, that showed a battle report of what the thing's going to look like. It's going to be phenomenal. And everyone right now is thinking about the best lists and the best things to do. A lot of you who aren't going to Masters might be thinking about, how do I improve my game? So I've gotten some advice from myself and some other people in my region in the South that I've asked for. I've asked them, how do I make my Kings of War game better? And I've taken their advice and some of my advice, and I've put them down into 10 ways that are going to make your Kings of War game better. These are general principles. So they're not going to be army specific. They might actually apply to other games as well. Maybe if you're playing 40K or Dead Zone or Vanguard or anything like that. A lot of them are going to be just wargaming in general. And then there will be a few that are very Kings of War specific, but I'm going to go ahead and get into them so that you guys can learn how to be better at Kings of War. Let's get saucy. When I played Magic the Gathering a long time ago, someone taught me very valuable information that I have taken to every game that I have ever played since then. It doesn't always adapt perfectly, but it does adapt very well. The question is, can I win? In Magic, there were a lot of phases in a turn. There was the setup phase, and then there was the upkeep phase, and then there was the draw phase and the main phase, just kind of like how Kings of War has a movement phase and then a shooting phase and then a melee phase. So hopefully that translates well. My friend told me that at the very beginning, the very first phase of any game is the can I win phase. And what that phase is you stop, you take a moment to look at the board and you say, can I win? And that's the most important thing. Now for Kings of War, this doesn't translate perfectly. In Magic or in poker, there's just like a boom, there's a play that you could use that could instantly win the game for you. That's not gonna happen in Kings of War, but in Kings of War, that translates very well into how do I win? So it's very important when you're looking at the table, you need to be constantly thinking about the goal of the game and how to win the game, not how to kill my opponent or what are the obvious moves that I have available to me. It's very important that you look at that board and you think, how do I win? And when you keep winning on your mind from the beginning, you're gonna be in a really good spot. So let's get into number 2 to show you some practical ways of how to do that. Number 2, always remember the objective. This is the most important thing that I can think of in Kings of War. And what normally happens in games that I've played, a lot of people play games turns 1 through 4 with absolutely no objective thought in mind. They're just trying to kill, get the good matchups, get the good kills, and maybe they succeeded, maybe they took the board. But if you're not thinking about the objective before turn 4 or 5 and your opponent is, there's a really good chance that you're gonna lose that game. There have been multiple games, I even have a battle report right here where I played Jose and he almost completely tabled me. But what did I do? I kept the objectives in mind and I won that game. This is an objective-based game. It is not a kill-based game, and you need to be thinking about how to do that. And sometimes doing that means that you don't make the move that you think you should make. I could go charge that thing and I'd absolutely murder it, but what would it do for me? It would move my guy off of the objective. It would take my guy out of a score zone. It would put my guy out of position and he couldn't get back. There are all sorts of reasons you might not want to take the obvious things. And in the end of the day, whoever won the field isn't the person that won the game. Whoever won the game is the person that scored the most. So keep that in mind. Hand in hand with that, number 3, have a strategy. This is so important to do. A lot of times people just set up their pieces and hope for the best and play it by ear. That's called tactics, and that's really important to do, and that's something you have to do on the fly. But as far as strategy goes, that needs to be figured out in the middle of list building. When you build this list, you need to be thinking, what is my goal here? Where are my anvils? Where are my hammers? How do I want to set myself up over the board? Who's supposed to be supporting who? Who do I see claiming objectives? Who do I see killing units that are problems? These are things that you really need to be thinking about at the very beginning of list building, and certainly in deployment. When you're putting everything out, you need to be thinking about how your units are going to work synergistically together to attack your opponent. It's a common military saying that no plan of action survives first contact with the enemy. So things are going to change, and that's when tactics happen. That's when you make decisions on the fly that are good to win. But you have to have a strategy at the beginning, and you need to either stick to that strategy or change that strategy throughout the game. You don't need to be moving each piece individually. You need to be thinking about how your army is moving together to achieve your goal. And when you start doing that and you start thinking about objectives, you just start seeing a whole nother level of play above your opponents, and opponents that aren't doing that back to you are going to lose 9 times out of 10. Number 4, know what your units are capable of. This is so important, and a lot of people don't know. So I'm not talking about dice averages. I mean, I am, but what I'm really talking about is know when this unit comes into something, it's going to wreck its face, or that thing has defense 6. It doesn't matter that I have crushing 2. I'm not going to get the wounds on it I'm expecting. When you put your units in, you need to know what you are expecting as a result. So when you put 18 attacks in and you're hitting on 3s, you know you're going to get 12 hits, and then maybe if you're wounding on 4s, you know you're going to get 6 wounds on average. These are things to know, but you also just need to have a really good idea of what's going to happen when you throw a unit into it. Now, I know we have a game that's based on luck and probability and dice, so not everything happens exactly the way we want it to, but you at least need to throw something in so that you know if you need to double charge something instead of single charge something. You need to know that before you go in, because units in Kings of War are just as alive until they're dead. Mounted Sons of Korgan unit is still going to wreck your face if it has 12 wounds or no wounds. So you really need to make sure you want to be removing those things from the table, especially if they have something like heal or anything else like that. Now, you need to know your averages, you need to know what your units are capable of, but you also need to know that dice don't always go your way, and you need to plan for that. You can't always plan for snake eyes. Snake eyes is something that's just gonna happen. If you have the, resources available, you need to think, what happens if I bounce off of this person? But you also need to plan for low dice. So if I know an average dice roll is 7, with 2d6, I might be hoping for a 4 or a 3 when I plan out the math in my head. That way, if something goes wrong, if I don't get the wounds I was expecting, I still at least have an average dice roll. If you're planning for an average dice roll and your whole strategy means that I need to roll a 7 twice or I need to roll a 7 once on this thing, and then you don't get the wounds you were expecting, and now you need a 10, if that happens to you a lot in a game, you're gonna get some combats go poorly for you. So always plan for poor dice. Always plan for lower hits than on average. Always round down statistics, maybe even an extra point or 2, and always expect nerve rolls in Kings of War to be lower than expected. I don't like to call a combat a sure thing, like something that I can strategically think that's going to happen, unless I need like snakes, maybe 3 or 4. And when I'm rolling the dice, I don't feel happy unless it's 5 or under, but I don't like planning for anything in the high regions. If I see something and I see, I'm gonna need a 7 twice on that, or okay, I need a 10 on that or something, that is not something in my strategy that I'm counting on happening. So that's good in 2 ways. One, if you're not planning on it happening, you have contingency plans, or that you're expecting to smash for a while or something like that. But 2, if something really goes your way, you suddenly have a unit that you weren't expecting, and now you have extra resources to play with. So it's really, really good when you have things like that to plan for the worst, and then when the best happens, awesome, that means we're winning even more. Number 5 is keep your options open. And let me explain what I mean by that. A lot of times in Kings of War, you have some pretty easy decisions. If someone just hits you in the face, you hit them back, you countercharge, right? And if you can't see anything and you can't make any other plays, then that's what you do. But sometimes, especially in shooting, even in charges, you have extra ideas, extra moves, and some units are in a position where they can get and do a lot of things. So I like to keep my options open as best as possible. I do this in deployment, and what I mean by that is I might deploy something maybe in the middle. Okay, let's say we're drawing a line on the left and the right, okay? There's gonna be two major conflicts right here, and I'm not sure where I'm gonna need the help. Well, keep your options open. Keep your second line in the middle so that they can commit to either direction if you need to do that. It's important in shooting. Let's say you're looking at a unit and you have 3 or 4 units that are facing it. Some of your own units can only hit the unit that you need dead, but other ones have other targets available as well. Make your easy decisions first. That way, if you get lucky on those shots, let's say you get more wounds than you were expecting, you've already got this person to snakes, or maybe 2 or maybe 3 or 4s, you can take that other shot and shoot it into something else. It might not even do a lot of wounds that turn. It just starts to pepper him up, get him ready for something. But those 2 or 3 wounds that you would have just dumped onto that unit that are now on this unit might matter later on in the game. Keeping your options open is really important. Make your easy decisions first, the ones that you don't have a choice in. And then make your hard decisions later, the ones where you have a lot of options. And that way, you're always putting the necessary force into something and you're not overkilling anything. All right, number 6, use terrain to your advantage. This is so important, and it happens in all sorts of areas of the game. So there are some obvious things that you have, like let's say you're playing a unit with you have a unit with Pathfinder. You're going to put that in front of rough terrain because some of your other units can't get through that, and this guy doesn't care at all. Those are some obvious things to do, but there's a lot of interesting things you can do with blocking terrain and with rough terrain and obstacles that are very important. If you're playing a Forces of Nature player, you want to try to gear combats towards obstacles because they're going to try to gear combats towards rough terrain where they can get through with Pathfinder. You want to get them hindered if you can. Blocking terrain is really interesting because you can use it to screen units and get things behind. You can also use it to make charges very difficult. If you press a unit up against blocking terrain, they can't hit you on the flank. You can expose your flank to them, and then they have to charge that flank, but they can't hit it. That means your unit's unchargeable. Those are really smart things to do. Another thing that I really like to do is if I have a unit like a forest, a rough terrain forest, high height, I like to hide enemy units completely behind it that are going to be a problem for the opponent, especially if it's a flank that I can't hold. Let's say they're coming in hard and I only have a couple of units to hold it off. You can hold a unit behind a forest. Now they can't charge you because they can't see you, but if they move and expose their flank to you to try to flank your army, you just pop right out there and start wrecking their face, and they know that, so it delays and makes it hard for them to approach you. There's a lot of unique, special ways you can use terrain that will make your game so much better, so much better. So look at that terrain, see the little crevices in between something that maybe one unit can fit through and another one can't. Use it to the best advantage you can. If you're really mindful of that terrain, that's going to affect your strategy, that's going to affect where you place objectives, that could affect so many things. So be sure to look at it. All right, guys, number 7, layer up. A lot of times people just like to draw a line all the way across the field with their units that just go boom, 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 nothing behind them. What happens is the second someone plays Red Rover and punches through that, they're behind you, you got nothing. This can be really problematic with flyers or something like that, because as you push this line up, flyers can just jump over you, turn around and hit you in the butt. And that's not anything you want to deal with. So the way to fix that, the way to make sure that you are smart is to layer up. Keep units behind other units. And this does a lot of different things. It's not always something that you need to do. If you're playing the super aggressive one, if they're not coming in, this might not be something you want to do, but I play ogres a lot, and ogres are slow, and ogres always get hit. So I have to keep units behind my other ogres to make sure that if you kill this unit, I still have something to hit you with. If you have a unit of breath weapon guys, ogres have boomers, abyssal dwarves have decimators, there's a lot of breath weapon units that are out there, or any sort of shooting spellcasters, combat individuals, all sorts of things. that can protect against flyers, it's really important to keep something behind your lines. That's how you zone something to stop them from coming in. There are so many reasons you want to keep something behind. Another thing, let's say if you're pushing a unit forward and this guy's really fast on you, you either have to stay out of charge range if you don't want to get charged, or sometimes you can protect a unit just by sticking it up and making sure another unit will be in charge distance of anything that they finish up on. So yeah, you can come in and hit this unit. You're happy to. But the problem is the second you hit this unit, my unit's gonna come back and hit you. That's another way to protect your unit. Think about in chess where you move a bishop up and the bishop can get hit by the queen, but if it does get hit, it's protected by the knight. That's something that's really important to do when you're moving up. Another reason this is important is, let's say you're fighting a really, really fast list. They're coming in hard and fast on you, and you have a slow army. Well, you're gonna get charged, and there's no way to stop that. But if you give him all the charges that he wants, you're gonna lose. You don't wanna lose, so how do you fix that? One, you use terrain to your advantage. You push things over to make sure it's very difficult to double charge. Maybe you push some chaff forward to make sure that other people can't double up on your units. That's really important. Two, you layer up. You have a unit behind that unit, so when they come in and they smash, you smash them back, hopefully killing the unit, and now you have an easy trade. These are the kind of things that you do to keep your line solid and to keep your battle plan going in the direction that you want it to go. Number 8, don't be afraid to be patient. When you're looking at a game, a lot of times you have these charges that you want, but that doesn't mean you have to take them right away. This is extremely important if you have a shooting army. You don't want to charge until you have to. You want to get as many shots as possible. But it can even be important with a positional army, like a really fast flying army or something. Just because you have the charges doesn't mean you can't get better charges next turn. So when you're looking at a game, I want you to think, what turn is it? Is it early in the game or is it late in the game? If it's late in the game, we probably need to get moving, but if it's early in the game, you might have time to get even better position. Sure, you can double charge it this turn, but next turn you might be able to flank it if you just move over here and put your unit against it. There are all sorts of different reasons why just because you can doesn't mean you should. And this all culminates into something I call, or anyone calls, pressure. If you can put more pressure on your opponent and get them more scared, that's important to do. So you gotta read the situation. You gotta see who has the edge. If someone has shooting and another person doesn't, you're gonna have the edge for pressure building. If someone has speed and the other person doesn't, they're gonna have the edge for pressure building. So you gotta think about it. But if you have the advantage, don't just jump in and take a minor advantage. Try to punch that up as high as you can. Sometimes you have to wait till you are uncomfortable in how you're moving up, but in the end, you just come in and you smash into this thing, get all the right matchups, and just absolutely decimate the line in a turn or two. So being patient is really important. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Read the situation and think, could I do better next turn, or is this the turn I really need to pounce? Number nine, Beatles fans out there? No? Don't worry about it. All right, number 9, lose small. This is really important if you're playing a tournament. If you're playing a pickup game, casual, on Friday, this isn't important at all. But if you're playing a tournament, this is a really big deal. Where I play, most of the tournaments that I play have a 20-0 system. 10-10 would mean that you drew. You both get 10 points. And then if you win, the better you win, the more objectives you claim, the more you kill, etc., etc. You get more and more points, and your opponent loses more and more points. Most people in a tournament don't go undefeated. They may. And if they do, they probably have a pretty good chance of winning it. But if they don't go undefeated, that means that they're going to have some opportunities to lose. And what they want to do really bad is they want to win big. We've been talking about how to win big, but they also need to lose small. So a 7-13 isn't that big of a deal. A 9-11, man, you're only 2 points away from winning that. Your opponent didn't get a whole lot from you. It's really important to hold on to as many points as you can. So if you know you're losing the game in turn 4, you've already lost the objectives, you can't think of a real reason, a real good way that you're gonna jump in and take something. You can go the Hail Mary approach, and if it fails, it's gonna fail gloriously and you're gonna lose 0-20. Or You can hold back, grab the things, and secure the things that you can hold, and then lose small. I was playing a game against Dustin Howard at Capital City Clash. I took third in the tournament. The only game that I lost that whole time was against Dustin Howard, but I lost 7-13. It wasn't that big of a deal. If you looked at the field, it didn't look that way at all. I had a troop of goblins left on the table, but I had that troop of goblins on an objective that Dustin had been ignoring because he'd been decimating my army, literally with decimators, abyssal, nasty. But, and they were just chowing on this objective. The objective was, this is Capital City Clash for you. It was eating barbecue. My goblins had just been behind this hill, jumping on barbecue, eating it, and at the end of the game, I only had them on the field, but I made some decisions that you wouldn't do if you were trying to win the game. He really wanted to kill those goblins, right? And in the grand scheme of things, losing 100 points isn't that big of a deal, but they were my objective holder. So what ended up happening is he came over and I threw good units that I knew were gonna die up in front of those hammers that were coming down, just so that they could never get my goblins. At the end of the game, I only had my goblins alive, but I scored 7 points. And if he had killed those, I would have lost 0-20. So it's really important when you know you've lost the game, and let's be honest, there's a point where we know we lost the game. Don't give up. Try to score as many points as you can. Every now and then when I've been doing this, I surprise myself and actually won the game. So I'm not saying make bad decisions. I'm saying make decisions that score you points and score as many points as possible, even when you know you're going to lose. All right, number 10. In Kings of War, you go and then your opponent goes. So there's no reason to hide what you're doing. Communicate with your opponent. This is so important. And the reason it's important is because there are little things in Kings of War. The game is a game of millimeters. You want to communicate, I'm out of your charge range right here. I'm not trying to get in, right? I am staying out. And if your opponent agrees with you on your turn that they're out of charge, that's great. There's going to be no arguments later. In the end, everyone wants a clean and fun game. And if you're communicating with your opponent, telling them, my intention here is that my lines are straight, so there's no flanks available. I'm repositioning this unit so that I'm giving you a front charge, not a flank charge. I'm in charge range right here, or you're out of charge range right here. I'm within 3 points of the objective here. When you're communicating with your opponent there, everybody has a better time. You're playing a clean and a fun game, and that's what everyone wants in Kings of War. And that, in the end, means there's less squabbling and more drinking, right? And that's what we all want. So I hope these were helpful to you. There are so many different things that'll make good for your Kings of War, and I could go over tactics all day, but these were kind of high level, overall things that will improve any Kings of War game with any army, with any player. So I hope that I taught you some things Maybe there were some of these you already do, and that's good. But these are all things that I see at high level play, and they're things you're going to see at the Masters. So hopefully you'll see me play at the Masters. I have qualified this year for my region, just squeaked in. I'm number 7 on the team, and that's only because people dropped, but I'm in it, damn it. So I'm going to be on there. I'm playing Brian Brodeur round 1. You can vote to see who you want to see. As much fun as it's going to be playing Brian Brodeur, it's going to be ogres on ogres for me. So go ahead and vote who you think will be the coolest matchups to see on Patrick Zoro Allen's poll that he's posted on Fanatics. Be sure to go to Patrick Zoro Allen's channel on Fanatics. It's up here. Be sure to go to Patrick Zoro Allen's channel right here, up in the tag during the Masters stream, so that you can see them and see some high-level play from some really cool players. But until then, guys, stay saucy.
Happy sauce.